because she refused to lend him money. The judge told Griffiths it was hard to imagine a worse crime. Linda Gummery reports.
The jury of 9 women and 3 men took more than 12 hours to return a majority verdict after the week-long trial at Bristol Crown Court. During the trial, Griffiths attacked one of her cameramen as he went into court. Griffiths, of no fixed address, broke into 69-year-old Vera Welham's plush Clifton Wood home in July last year and smothered her with a pillow. Mrs. Welham had befriended Griffiths, who was described as a loner, while he was working on her home. She'd refused to lend him more money during a week-long drinking binge, and as a result, he killed her. Fingerprints on the drain pipe and bloodstains on her pillow led to Griffiths' capture. In sentencing, Mr. Justice Swinton Thomas told the court it was difficult to imagine a worse crime. Griffiths stood emotionless as the sentence was passed. The judge told Griffiths, by his actions, Mrs. Welham had lost her life, her children had lost their mother, and her grandchildren had lost their grandmother.
And has been sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of a Bristol pensioner. Vera Welham was smothered to death in her Clifton home in July last year. The jury decided by a majority verdict that Ian Griffiths was guilty after a 7-day trial at Bristol Crown Court. Jenny Craddock reports.
After 7 hours and 58 minutes of deliberation, the jury of 9 women and 3 men returned to give their verdict. They found the defendant guilty of murder by a majority of 10 to 2. Ian Griffiths in the dock closed his eyes briefly as he heard their decision. The judge, Mr. Justice Swinton Thomas, in sentencing Griffiths to life imprisonment, said you have been convicted of the murder, no doubt while heavily under the influence of alcohol, of a woman aged 69. By your action, not only has that lady lost her life, but her children lost a mother and her grandchildren lost a grandmother. A woman who was kind to you. It is difficult to imagine a worse crime. In mitigation, Griffiths' defence counsel said drink had played a substantial part in the crime. And while in custody, Griffiths had vowed he was never going to drink again. The jury at the Crown Court had taken 2 days to reach their verdict. 3 times they'd been called back by the judge, but said they'd been unable to reach a decision. What they were considering was a case based almost entirely on forensic evidence. Griffiths had worked as an odd job man for Vera Welham. She'd befriended him and not only gave him money for the work, but also extra cash when he asked. But the Wednesday before her death, she refused him for the first time. On Friday, 27th of July last year, he returned to her house in Clifton Vale, broke in through the back, smashed down her bedroom door and smothered her with a pillow. But as police were to discover, he left behind vital evidence, evidence that was to convict him. There was his footprint on a garden chair in the conservatory at the back of the house. He climbed on that and onto a washing machine to break in through a window. There was a fingerprint too, and on the pillow used to kill her, tiny specks of his blood. He'd cut himself while breaking in.
It wasn't until only this summer that we were able to split that blood grouping. The blood group was common both to the family and Ian Griffiths. Now that caused a problem because here we had the murder weapon with spots of blood on it. A new technique was, I was informed of a new technique. We said, yes, please carry on and do it. And lo and behold, as late as a couple of months ago, we had, in fact, the blood grouping split. So we could say it was the blood group of Ian Griffiths and not the family. So important that was.
The judge at the court told the jury that none of this evidence on its own proved Griffiths was a murderer. But they needed to consider all the evidence together. It was advice that the 9 women and 3 men eventually took. Jenny Craddock, BBC News West, Bristol.
Vera Welham was well known in Clifton, although she only moved to Bristol from Leicester in 1989. Sean Lay has been talking to some of those who knew her.
In court, the prosecution described Vera Welham fitting into Clifton life like a hand in a glove. She did so with ease. After moving here in 1989, she was a regular at this cafe.
She was very friendly, wasn't she? Yeah, she was really sweet. She's just pleasant, you know, sort of customer that would come in and talk to you, have a little chat, tell you what she was doing.
Replace her.
I think that was, you know, obviously part of her outgoing nature, you know. She just enjoyed meeting people and found it very rewarding as well and, you know, enjoyed it.
Vera Welham's daughter Valerie has spent the last year coming to terms with the death of her mother, But publicity in the case and having herself to give evidence at the trial makes it all the more difficult to accept that today it's finally over.
A lot of it's just unbelievable. You just can't sometimes believe that it has happened. I've still got her telephone number on my telephone memory and so on. You know, it's just very, very difficult to sometimes to actually believe that it's happened.
Valerie Welham well recalls the concern she felt when her mother told her she'd lent money to handyman Ian Griffiths.
It was typical of Mum, you know, she just took to people and, you know, she was very kind and she felt sorry for him and he gave her a big sob story about his life and so on, and she was just taken in by it. I mean, I just cannot understand why. I mean, it seems to me incredible that somebody who showed him nothing but kindness, that he should react in that way. He just should be kept apart from everyone, I think, really.
Valerie Welham, after